Dr. Dot's Nanobots. Edwin couldn't wait to get to school. Today was career day. His science teacher, Ms. Pruitt, had asked a doctor to visit his class. A real doctor. Edwin was the first one off the bus. He couldn't wait to get to class.
Hey there, Edwin,
Ms. Pruitt said with a smile.
You sure are in a hurry this morning. You're the first one here.
Edwin hung up his coat. He dropped his backpack by a desk in the front row. He caught his breath and said,
I had to make sure I was in the front row for Dr. Dot. I can't wait to learn more about the circulatory system. You've been paying close attention lately.
Ms. Pruitt giggled.
What about the circulatory system has you so excited?
Edwin thought for a minute. He scratched his head. He finally replied,
Well, I guess I want to be a doctor or a scientist. Edwin, I'm so proud of you for putting thought into your interests.
Ms. Pruitt said.
I think you will absolutely love Dr. Dot's presentation. She is going to show us one of her inventions, new technology that helps study things like the circulatory system. She is the perfect example for you. Did you know that you can be a doctor of science who helps with medicine?
Edwin jumped up with excitement. He was all ready for the presentation. He had been making sure he had his notebook and pencil out and ready. His eyes were wide. He exclaimed,
I didn't know that. So you mean I can work with everything I love to learn about? You sure can, Edwin,
said Ms. Pruitt.
How about this? I think you are the perfect student to introduce Dr. Dot to the class. What do you say? Miss Pruitt, that would be amazing.
Good morning, Dr. Dot.
Good morning, Miss Pruitt's third grade. I'm excited to be here today. Miss Pruitt told me that you are learning about the circulatory system. Can anyone explain what that is?
Dr. Dot began her presentation. Edwin squirmed in his seat. He raised his hand so sharply it could have been an arrow. He tried to hold in his answer. Dr. Dot could see his puffed pink cheeks. He dropped his pencil, and she knew he was the one to ask.
The young man with the necktie, I think you mean business. You gave me the best introduction. Why don't you help the class remember?
The doctor said with a friendly smirk.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Dot. I thought you'd never ask.
Edwin let this all out in one breath.
Miss Pruitt has helped us learn the circulatory system. It is amazing. I mean, what else can carry almost 10 pints of blood? What else can carry it through 60,000 miles of blood vessels? What else could help every cell and every organ to breathe and eat? What else could do all of this every day?
Edwin was in deep thought. He looked like he'd forgotten he was sharing with the class. He turned around quickly.
Right, guys?
Everyone let out a chuckle. They clapped for his very detailed response. Miss Pruitt stood up quickly and said,
Doctor, Edwin has been our most focused student for these lessons. Well, I can certainly see that.
Dr. Dot continued.
I have something that will excite him even more. Class, take a look at this slide.
Dr. Dot began to explain to the class that she was a doctor. She was able to conduct experiments all the time. She amazed the students with some that she shared. Then she showed another slide. It made the whole class gasp.
What in the world are those?
Asked a voice from the back of the class.
Good question, young lady. Well, these little guys are my friends. Meet Gadget, Widget, and Bull. They're nanobots. I invented them. They are the smallest robots ever made. They help us study the inside of our bodies.
Dr. Dot was now the excited one. The class could tell she loved what she was talking about.
How can they study our insides?
A student whined just behind Edwin.
Won't they hurt us? No,
said Dr. Dot. Her face looked like she knew the question was coming.
These robots are tiny. They are so tiny that you wouldn't know if they were on your desk. In fact, an ant is almost 1 million times larger than each of them. They are so safe that they are going to lead our tour today.
Miss Pruitt perked up.
Now, just how are they going to do that? I'm so glad you asked, Miss Pruitt.
Dr. Dot said eagerly.
I was able to use my 3 friends to record a visual tour, a tour of my very own circulatory system.
Edwin, who had been taking notes, stopped writing. He slowly looked up at Dr. Dot. He almost whispered.
Are they still exploring your circulatory system right now?
Dr. Dot laughed and assured everyone that Gadget, Widget, and Bull were not. She began to turn slide after slide of the nanobots' travels. They were going to show the students a real tour of the circulatory system. Dr. Dot was thrilled. She described the places the tour would lead. She made the students want to listen even more.
The nanobots were riding red blood cells through plasma,
she said.
This is where they started. The plasma helps keep the blood cells floating and moving. This helps the body's cells stay healthy.
The video was incredible. It showed the plasma rushing by the nanobots. It showed them hanging on tightly to the red blood cells. The students listened closely. They learned all they could. The nanobots hang on for the ride. Gadget, Widget, and Bull traveled through the blood vessels. They were on their way to the heart. The class saw platelets and white blood cells pass by. They learned that the platelets were important. These platelets could help stop someone from bleeding. They also learned that white blood cells help to fight infection. The red blood cells moving around the body were bringing nutrients and oxygen to all of the other cells. They also traveled with their own protection. The nanobots followed the flow of blood. It would take them around the whole body. Dr. Dot said that is what it means to circulate. The class was in awe at what the circulatory system carried. It took oxygen, vitamins, and nutrients to the entire body within 60 seconds. Dr. Dot told the students about the power of the heartbeat. She said it has the power to make all of this happen. She told them how important a healthy heart is. The bots started off toward the heart. They moved in blood vessels called veins. Dr. Dot said the red blood cells had something called hemoglobin. The students saw something sticking to the red blood cells like a magnet. They learned it was the hemoglobin helping to hold oxygen to the cells, which is then transported throughout the body. The nanobots were on their way with oxygen-rich red blood cells. They entered something like a tunnel into the heart. Gadget finds rhythm. Dr. Dot taught the class about the heart. She described what they were seeing using Gadget's recording. She told the class the heart is slightly to the left in your chest. She said it is the power behind the entire circulatory system. The heart has a rhythm all its own. Dr. Dot informed the class that most hearts should be beating at 60 to 100 times per minute. This makes the heart a type of pump. The heartbeat allows the blood to enter the heart when it contracts. The blood travels through the heart, then the heartbeat releases the blood before it squeezes again. Now that's a steady beat. The class watched as Gadget showed them the areas the blood would travel through. Dr. Dot explained details about how it all works. She told the students that the heart has 4 chambers. It has 2 on top and 2 on the bottom. The top left atrium and the top right atrium make up the atria. They are the areas in the heart that fill with blood coming from the body. And this was right where Gadget was headed. Gadget would then reach the bottom chambers. They are known as ventricles. The ventricles push the blood out. The left atrium and ventricle are connected. The right atrium and ventricle are connected. The left and right sides of the heart are not. They are separated down the middle by what is called the septum. Dr. Dot pointed out what Gadget was looking at. The class watched the nanobots in the heart chambers and giggled as they got dizzy when Gadget went from the top to the bottom. The class could see the valves opening and closing. They even saw Bull and Wedget just ahead. They swirled in what looked like a whirlpool. It sucked them from the atrium into the ventricle. They were on their way out to the body. Before the nanobots can continue to deliver necessities to the body's cells, they must go through another valve. The heart has 4 valves. The mitral valve and the tricuspid valve are 2. They allow blood to flow from the atria to the ventricles. The pulmonary valve and the aortic valve are the others. They allow the blood to exit the heart to the body. These valves keep blood flowing forward. They open and the blood continues on its path. As they close, they stop the blood from changing directions. Dr. Dot let the students come up to the screen to see the valves working. Edwin was so intrigued, he asked if he could rewind to earlier slides. He loved watching the nanobots surf. The students took their seats again. The nanobots' journey was far from over. The 3 bots bounced around the screen as if on ocean waves. They exited the heart. Then they entered an arch. This arch is the largest artery in the body, called the aorta. The aorta looks like highway bridges crossing. It provides more than one exit from the heart. The aorta makes sure the blood traveling from the right of the heart is able to reach the lungs. It also helps the blood from the left reach the body. Gadget, Widget, and Bull weave their way on screen. They rush through the arteries with oxygen by their sides. Dr. Dot was able to get the screen to zoom to really see the trade-off between the body's cells. The cells weren't the only ones with great teamwork. The class fell into a trance. The zoom of the screen was so close, they felt like they were on a cell too. Bull was no longer just hanging on. He and Widget used teamwork just like the cells. Widget rode on the front of the blood cell. Bull balanced on the back. The blood cells passed the other body cells. Widget helped push the oxygen and glucose along. Bull gathered the elements the body cells couldn't use. The cells got the energy they needed. They also got rid of what they didn't need. It was a successful trade-off. Bull couldn't handle any more waste. The lungs went through the same trade-off. They were given what they needed from the cells that went out the other side of the heart. It was a good thing the lungs could breathe out some of the waste. Back to square one for a healthy start. Dr. Dot turned the lights back on. The students were all surprised. Even Miss Pruitt was squinting. She looked at the clock on the wall, which said that she only had a few more minutes before the bell. Dr. Dot's presentation had been so interesting. No one in the room realized how much time had passed. The students all dragged out a disappointed
"Now!"
when she showed signs of coming to an end. Dr. Dot smiled. She knew she must have done a good job, but she wasn't finished yet.
Children, don't fret just yet. I have a few questions for you. Who can tell me where you think Gadget, Widget, and Bull are off to after this slide? Let's hear from a student near the back. Yes, you dear. Where do you think the nanobots will travel next?
Dr. Dot asked with confidence. The class could hear a girl's quiet voice.
Well, Dr. Dot, won't the nanobots just keep circulating? I knew you would give the best answer. Don't be shy about being right. Could you explain a bit more?
The girl's cheeks grew rosier by the second. She still smiled when she replied.
You see, they will make their way back to the heart. Maybe for their next ride, they visit the lungs. They may just keep circling and circling.
Edwin looked up from taking his notes. He gave the girl in the back a thumbs up with a huge smile on his face. He said,
I knew I wasn't the only one excited about this.
The class laughed. The girl in the back smiled. Edwin continued.
Dr. Dot, tell them how fast all of this happens, will you? Edwin, I think next time I'm going to get you to lead the presentation,
said Dr. Dot. The class laughed again.
That is exactly what I was going to tell them next. Class, did you know that the nanobots make it back to the heart in 60 seconds? Remember what your heart rate should be?
Someone called out.
About 60 to 100 beats per minute. That's right.
Dr. Dot continued.
When you hear a heartbeat, you are hearing the valves open and close. This happens about 60 times per minute. Every minute your blood goes around your whole body. That sure is a lot of work. And now my work is done,
Dr. Dot said, smiling.
I'll leave you with this, children. Stay healthy, eat well, and exercise that heart muscle.
Discuss.
1. There are 4 chambers in the heart. List each one and what happens inside them. 2. When you hear a heartbeat, what is actually happening?